Greetings! Welcome to Excel Module 2. In this video, we will be looking at the use of formulas and functions in Excel, using formulas and functions to create calculations with our data in Excel. So let's get started. As we can see here, we have our worksheet that we used in the previous module, the Profit Hendo first quarter. We see that we have 3 columns of data as well as a 4th column for a total. The 3 columns are the type of video category, the number sold of those videos, and the price per video. So we can see right here on column D that we have a total column. We want to try to derive some totals from the data that we see in columns B and C. Now, we know that if we had a total sales total, in this case, of however many videos were sold times their price, that would give us a total. So we could look at this as the number sold multiplied times the price in each row, in each case, would give us the total of sales for that row. Now, in Excel, we have seen that certainly in any case we can come to a cell. Let's say I'll come out to this cell here and I'll just type hello, as I've done in the past. This method of entering data into a cell, Excel knows that I'm entering text in this case, or something that's general. Could be numbers, could be letters, but it's basically data. I'm entering something in that cell that I want to store. In the case of using formulas and functions, we do that a little differently. So instead of coming to this cell right here, which is D3, and if I were to type, let's say I typed 147 times $54.99, and I hit enter. Look what's happened. I have typed 147 times $54.99, hoping to get a total for this row. But what Excel has stored, and if I highlight it here and look at my function bar as well, it has simply stored the text that I typed. I did not give Excel any indication that I wanted to use a formula, something that would actually calculate a value. To do that, you have to enter the formula differently than you would enter text or numbers. So what we do then is, I'm just going to clear the cell. What we do whenever we want to start using a formula, the first thing you do is enter an equal sign. So if I enter an equal sign here, I have just told Excel now that I'm going to be entering a formula, and I'm going to be actually using this cell for calculations, not for entering data or storing data, but as a place where calculations automatically occur. So in this case, let's say I now have the equal sign there. So let's try what we did before again, 147 times 54.99. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. Well, that actually gave me the right figure. It used accounting format. It looks just like money. It is $8,083.53. And that is what 147 times $54.99 is. Okay, so you may be thinking, well, okay, that's the way that we do this in Excel. We look at the cell, the value in the cell, and we multiply it times the value in another cell. But actually, no, that is not how we do it in Excel. We would never want to come through this row which says 147 videos sold times $54.99 each and input that here. Well, why? It actually gave us the number we wanted. The reason you would not do that is because the use of this spreadsheet is dynamic, meaning it changes. If I were to come in here right now and go to 147, and we've sold now one more video, and so I change this to 148 and I hit enter, notice what happens here to cell D3. Nothing. It did not change at all. Because it is not set, the formula in cell D3 is not set to look at what's in cell B3 or in C3. It just looks at the numbers I gave it. which was 147 times 54.99. So that is not the way we want to do that. What we want to do here is actually to tell Excel through a formula here that we want to take this cell and multiply them together without mentioning the values that are in them. It will go find the values and bring them back and do the multiplication. I just want to tell it which cells to work with. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to change this back to 147, so we're at our original value. If I come back to cell D3, I want to alter this formula now. Now we know we can work up here in the formula bar, and we know that all formulas start with an equal sign. So let's go ahead and edit this formula. I'm going to just erase what we have, and I'm going to keep the equal sign. And instead of typing actual values, in this case, I'm going to type cell numbers. Now, I'm going to put these in parentheses just to keep them organized away from the equal sign. Now, instead of typing 147, I'm actually going to type B3. Now, look what happens. I have typed a cell location, a reference to a cell, not a hard number, not 147, but I'm telling Excel I want to use what's in B3. I don't know what's in B3, but use B3, and over time, B3 may change. I want to take B3 and multiply it times C3. Now notice something else. You'll see some color coding here. As I'm entering cell references, Excel is showing me where those cells are, just to be sure that I'm on track with what it is I want to do. Now, of course, I'm working up here in the formula bar. I can just as easily work down here in the cell itself. Sometimes it's easier above here if the formula is longer, or if the cell column width is narrow. But here, I'm just going to come back to the cell. My cursor's blinking. I'm going to close these parentheses. I'm now telling Excel that that's what I want to work with. B3 times C3. Let's hit enter. Okay, there it is. 8,083 and 53 cents. If I look again at the contents of this cell, you'll see up here in the formula bar that it is equals B3 times C3. If I were to now change what's in, as I did before, change what's in cell B3 to 148, watch what happens. The total changes. A big rule here when it comes to using formulas, when it comes to having calculation columns like totals or rows that calculate totals, we never want to enter actual values. We want to set up a formula that will reference cells or cell ranges. Let's set this back to 147 so our worksheet's intact. Now our total returns to the original value. Okay, so that is the why of using formulas. I want to show you something. I don't have it here on the list. In fact, let me add. We will now insert a cell and shift the other cells down, and I will type in here autofill. This is an important feature when you are creating totals, when you're creating columns and rows that have a calculation. I have just created the formula that I want in cell D3. However, I also want that for the rest of my data. To then go through and retype this every time would be difficult. It would take a long time. This spreadsheet's not even very large. So here's what you do. Autofill. If I have the formula in place and you highlight the cell that has the formula, if you notice in the lower right here, you'll see a dot appear on that cell. If I hover directly on top of that dot, I get a more narrow crosshairs. If I click and hold, I am now performing an autofill. I'm dragging downwards. I'm clicking and holding on that small dot on the corner of that total cell in D3. And now watch what happens when I let go. This cell started as my original cell with the formula. But look, when I arrow downwards and you watch the formula bar, it's now B4 times C4. Well, now it's B5 times C5, and so on and so on. Excel knew what I was trying to do, copied the formula for me down the column, and changed the row numbers to fit the row that I was in. So now I have totals that go from row 3 down to row 15 automatically. I used autofill. Okay, we've covered autofill now. Now, let's go ahead before this next section. I'm going to actually insert a column. We know how to do that. I select the entire column. I want to insert it in front of column A. So I'm going to just choose Insert Columns. It'll always insert things before where I've selected the column or row. And down here, I'm actually going to type in this cell totals. And I am going to right align this cell. And I'm going to middle align it as well, vertically. Okay, we're getting set up for the next section here. All right, and I just added a column. And I've covered this one as well, which is the custom total value in stock. That is our E column, which used to be our D column. Now it is our E column. The next thing we can do is we can look at a few other built-in functions. I want to just mention here that what I put in what's now cell E3, that is a formula. Inside of Excel, there are preset mathematical functions that you can use. In other words, they will do something. They are already set to do that, and you just put them inside your formula. In fact, in many cases, the formula is only the function that we're going to see. That's how it'll be here. These are the function types that we're going to talk about. Count A counts the number of cells with content in them for the area that I select. The sum gives you totals. The average will take the average of whatever I have selected, all of the values in that area. The minimum and the maximum take the highest and the lowest value inside of the area I've selected. Now, I kept saying inside of the area I've selected because with these formulas, you are working with multiple cells to find out the count, the number of things in those cells, the sum, adding things up, average, minimum, and maximum. Let's look at sum for just a second. If I were to try to recreate the sum of, let's say, the column E, which would be the range of E3 down to E15, how would I write that? Well, I would write E, remember I don't want to write hard actual numbers. I would write E3 plus E4 plus E5 plus E6 plus E7, on and on. Instead of doing that, I can deploy a function right here called sum. We're going to look at that first. If I wanted to get a grand total of all of the video sales, this is what each video sold, the amount of money. I want to know the grand total, the entire sales for all the videos. Okay, so let's put in a formula right here in E17. And I want to use the sum function. But we know we're going to use a formula. So anytime we use a formula, we enter starting with an equal sign. So there's my equal sign. The sum formula will add cells. That's what I want to do. So I'm just going to type sum. Now look what happens. Excel knows right off the bat what I'm trying to do. I'm creating a sum in a cell below this column where there's a whole bunch of formulas already existing. I have accounting format numbers here. It knows, or at least guesses, that I want to take the sum of E3 to E15. It provides me that option. Well, I'm going to take it because that's quick and easy. I'm going to just click this right here. And there is my grand total for this entire column. Now I can see that there is a little difference in the font sizing. Here in my data, I've got a font sizing of 14. So let me take this row and make sure that matches. Okay. Now the numbers actually align correctly. This cell, if we look at the formula that's in it, it is equals sum parentheses E3 to E15. It is telling Excel, give me the sum of the range E3 to E15. This range right here. It's automatic, at least if you place things right where Excel takes a good guess. If you don't, you can do this manually or a little more manually. Let me show you that. So we're going to use a different formula, or excuse me, a different function. We're going to use this count function. I want to know how many video categories, how many different types of video we have here. Now keep in mind this is a short list, but this could be a very long list. So I want to create the total for the number of different types of video right here. If I select the cell where I want to place a formula, I begin by typing the equal sign. Next, I'm going to just type count, and sure enough, Excel did it again. It said, okay, I think what you're trying to do is take the count A of cells B3 to B15. Count A will just count cells that have something in them. There's other types of counts, as you can see below, but this one's pretty simple. Count A will say, if there's something in it, I'll count it. If it's blank, I will not include it. So let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and hit enter here. There's our formula. The formula provided 13 as the value, 13 different videos. But let's do this a different way. I'm going to clear this cell. I'm going to start as I usually do with an equal sign, and I'm going to type count A, and then I'm going to type the open parentheses. So now it has given me control for me to select what range to count. We may not have this count occurring right below the categories. It may be over here to the side. But what we can do is once we have that open parentheses, I can come to the cells and select them. And in the case of a range, I would click and drag. So I'm going to click here and drag down. Notice what my formula is doing. It's automatically being created as I drag. So I've dragged between B3 and B15. I'm going to let go. I'm going to hit the closing parentheses on my formula and then hit enter. Again, same result. One was done automatically by Excel and I accepted it. One was done manually by me. Okay. Over here we use the sum function. We're going to use the sum function here as well. I want to get a total number sold very quickly. I'm just going to hit the equal sign. I'm going to start with typing an S, U. As soon as I got enough letters in there, it saw what I was trying to do. I'll take that. Let me center align this to match what's there. Okay. Now, in this case, we probably wouldn't want to take the price and add up all these prices. That's fairly meaningless. These ones are price per video. The totals are more important. So here we've done it. We have taken a totals row here and got a total number of different types of videos, the total number sold, and the total revenue from those sales. If we were to multiply cell C17 by E17, we'd get the same number. Okay. Basic functions there. Let's look at, we've just looked at count and sum. Sum is very popular, very common. Okay, now, here is our price. We're gonna use some functions on that. I want to know the average price. I'm hitting enter here. I want to know the lowest price, enter, and I want to know the highest price. Okay, hitting enter. These particular three functions are built-in ones. I'll just write a line here as I'm working. Built-in functions to give us these values. Again, average, lowest, and highest will work on a range of cells or on multiple cells. They don't have to be in a line. They could be scattered around. But we want to get these three figures as well. Average, lowest, highest. Well, how do I do it? Start with an equal sign so I can be creating a formula. And sure enough, Excel has guessed even further in this case. It saw the word average in the C column, and now I'm trying to enter formula in the cell just to the right of it. It knows I want to use the average function, and it knows I want to use cells D3 to D15. It is often automatic when Excel will offer you formulas and functions to use. Sometimes it's correct, sometimes it's not. I chose this column to place the value in so you could see that it will very easily automatically guess if you're right under the other values. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go to my lowest price. I'm going to type equals MIN. It gives me its guess for it. Yes, I'll take that. And I'm going to hit down arrow. I'm going to type equals, and I'm going to hit MAX. And sure enough, I will use its suggestion for that as well. So now we can see, we've just done these three. Now we can see that we have some figures to use here. Okay? Let's apply a little bit of styling here. For total rows, I like using the built-in in the styles group here on your ribbon, cell styles total. Perfectly reasonable. I can, now that I've still got those selected, I could bump this up. We were actually at 14 in the column above, and you'll notice it's giving me an auto preview as I hover. I'm going to, in this case, I will leave it at 14 to match. So we got good alignment with the numbers here. Okay, and down here, we know from previous video that we can certainly come here and put a border. I'm going to choose a border color of a sort of a softer gray. I'm going to make sure that the border style is on a thin line, and then I'm going to enter a border around the outside. So we have our totals here in sort of a little box. And then in this section, I will choose some cell styling as well using heading 3, which is a little smaller, but it gives me some lines under and a little bit of styling. Okay. So we have taken our raw data for the sales, and we have now created total per type of video, a grand total. We've counted how many different videos we have. We've counted the total number of units sold. And then down here in this section, we've got a little area where we can calculate average price, lowest price, and highest price.